oil prices bring Putin to the table? As one prices plunge, the Kremlin strategy may be shifting. But will Vladimir Putin seize the opportunity for peace or exploit the pause to regroup and recharge? The West watches with bated breath, wondering if the current downturn is a genuine prelude to the tent or merely a tactical pause in Russia's strategic playbook. Well, these and many more will be explored in today's Flash News. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Ako. Let's begin. Today on the report, we'll take a look at President Trump, a turning point in global biosecurity. In a sweeping move aimed at tightening biosecurity controls, President Donald Trump on Monday signed an executive order banning all federal funding for gain-of-function research in foreign countries, particularly targeting China and Iran. Now, the White House says the order is designed to prevent the kind of risky experimentation that may have contributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. But as scientific freedom is curbed in the name of national security, is this a strategic defense or a political reaction to global distrust? Now, we'll take a look at the gain-of-function research, which involves enhancing the infectiousness of virulence of viruses. This has long been a subject of controversy. The White House specifically pointed to previous experiments at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and its partner, EcoHealth Alliance, as examples of the dangers this research can pose. Now, these experiments involving bat coronaviruses were under federal scrutiny long before the pandemic, but the new order puts an official end to any such U.S. funding, both present and future, in nations deemed to lack sufficient oversight. Take a look.
On policy and speech writing too, along with Ross, right?
Yes, sir.
So great. It's great to have you all.
And today I commend President Trump for his courage and his vision in ending U.S. bioweapons research. And Jay, I'd love you to talk a little bit about it.
Any nation that engages in this research endangers their own population as well as the world, as we saw during the COVID pandemic. This proclamation makes it so that most science is actually poses no threat to human populations. The vast majority of science will go on under this as normal. But the fraction of this research that has the risk of causing a pandemic, harming every single person on the face of the earth, we're going to put it, this proclamation, this executive order puts in place a framework to make sure that the public has a say, that if such a risk is being taken, that only scientists alone won't be able to decide that. That in fact, the public can say, no, don't take this risk. And I'm really, really proud to be here with President Trump, who's signed this order, ending this research, and for the first time putting in place a real regulatory framework to make it go away forever.
So on people that came into the country illegally, we have many of them, and we're looking for that. But for the population that's supposed to be there, it's perfecto. And they want us to do that. They don't want to have the waste, the fraud, and the fraud is big, by the way.
A critical remark right there with President Trump at the White House. But then, according to a White House fact sheet, the order empowers U.S. research agencies to evaluate and, if necessarily, terminate any biological research, foreign or domestic, that could endanger public health, safety, or national security. Now, for decades, policies overseeing gain-of-function research on pathogens, toxins, and potential pathogens have lacked adequate enforcement, transparency, and top-down oversight. says the administration. Now, it added that many researchers have failed to account for the potential societal risks such research carries. The author also references the 1977 Russian flu and the suspected lab origins of COVID-19 as cautionary examples of lab-related outbreaks. Now, this executive order by President Trump is about protecting Americans from dangerous and unnecessary experimentation. Well, a senior White House official stated, but, well, will this measure improve public safety or hinder critical scientific progress against future pandemics? And now this is talking about just America. What about the world? President Donald Trump has been one of the most vocal proponents of the lab leak theory regarding the origin of COVID-19, often clashing with the global scientific community and U.S. intelligence agencies. Now, his administration insists the order strikes a balance by targeting only dangerous forms of research, while leaving room for legitimate, life-saving biological studies to continue. Now, the executive order also seeks to bolster America's leadership in safe biotechnology and biosecurity. This does not impede productive biological research, the White House emphasized, but ensures that it's conducted responsibly and under clear safeguards. A critical question here. Could this executive order signal a shift toward a more nationalistic approach to global science? And what does it mean for America's future role in pandemic prevention? While supporters of the ban argue that the United States taxpayer dollars should never support research in labs lacking transparency or accountability, critics worry that this policy may isolate American science from international collaboration. But is that really true? Well, moving on, in another report today, in a sweeping move that's sending shockwaves across Washington, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Monday ordered a 20% reduction in the number of four-star generals and admirals, signaling the most significant shakeup at the top of the Pentagon in decades. While Hegseth says the cuts are about readiness and efficiency, critics fear the purge of senior leadership could undermine strategic stability. A critical question right there. Is this a bold reset of military bureaucracy or a dangerous gamble with national security? This is Hegseth coming up with an order. But then what has President Trump got to say? The announcement marks a new chapter in President Donald Trump's second term. Now, with Hegseth, once a Fox News host and a longtime critic of the Pentagon, elite executing Trump's campaign promise to drain the swamp, now extended into military hierarchy, his rapid-fire restructuring includes the dismissal of top brass, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Navy's top admiral and the head of the NSA. Let's take a look at this video of Pete Hegseth.
Today, we have 2.1 million service members with 44 four-star and flag officers. So it used to be a ratio of 1 general to 6,000 troops. Today, it's 1 general to 1,400. More generals and admirals does not equal more success. Now, this is not a slash and burn exercise meant to punish high-ranking officers. Nothing could be further from the truth. This has been a deliberative process, working with the Joint Chiefs of Staff with one goal: maximizing strategic readiness and operational effectiveness by making prudent reductions in the general and flag officer ranks. So there's 2 phases here. Phase 1, we're looking at our current service structure. And in phase 2, it's a strategic review of the unified command plan. Now, this is going to be, we think, the most comprehensive review since the Goldwater-Nichols Defense Reorganization Act of 1986.
In this video, Pete Hegseth insisted that the reforms are not punitive but necessary. More generals and admirals does not lead to more success, he said, emphasizing that the cuts were made in collaboration with the Joint Chiefs and aimed at maximizing strategic readiness. Still, the precise positions to be slashed remain unclear. fueling anxiety throughout the Department of Defense. Now, the memo obtained by Reuters also outlines additional cuts, a 20% reduction of general officers in the National Guard, and a 10% overall reduction in senior officers across all branches. These changes are part of a larger Pentagon review, which may include consolidated regional combatant commands, powerful structures that direct global operations, and are typically headed by four-star generals. Now, among the possibilities, merging the U.S. Africa Command with European Command, or combining Southern and Northern Commands. Such moves would eliminate multiple top-tier posts. Yet, this aggressive downsizing has drawn sharp criticism on Capitol Hill. Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the State Armed Services Committee, questioned the motives behind the reforms, eliminating the positions of many who are most skilled and experienced officers without sound justification. And this would not create efficiency. It could only cripple the military, he said. Now, are these cuts based on strategic needs or on political ideology disguised as a reform? Beyond the uniforms, the civilian leadership at the Pentagon has also been rattled. In just weeks, 3 high-level officials have been fired following an internal leak investigation. Among them is Dan Caldwell, a close Hegseth ally, who was abruptly escorted out of the Pentagon last week. Caldwell denies involvement in the leaks, also ousted Hegseth's Deputy Chief of Staff, Darren Selnick. Now, these questions remain. If this dismissal and restructurings are the product of an evidence-based overhaul or part of a broader ideological campaign to consolidate control, with trust between civilian leadership and military officers appearing strained, is the Pentagon's command structure being optimized for modern threats or politically purged at the cost of stability? A critical question right there. We are talking about the security of a nation. We are talking about the defense security. Well, coming and giving us more updates on that, we'll be moving on to the next report. We're having a groundbreaking report from the Russia and Ukraine ceasefire. And President Trump says lower oil prices could push Putin to end the war. But then President Trump on Monday suggested that falling oil prices may be motivating Russian President Vladimir Putin to consider ending the war in Ukraine. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said both Moscow and Kyiv appear increasingly willing to negotiate a settlement. But if peace hinges on oil prices, does that mean the fate of global conflicts rests more in commodity markets than in diplomacy? Since the start of the war and the start of this year, oil prices have dropped by about $15 per barrel, weakening a major source of revenue for Russia, whose economy heavily depends on energy exports. OPEC plus sources also indicated plans to boost oil production, which could drive prices down further. Now, as the price of oil is down, Trump believes it's a good position to settle. Both Russia and Ukraine want to settle, but how will this work? Take a look.
It's very interesting, but I think Russia, with the price of oil right now, oil's gone down. I think we're in a good position to settle. They want to settle. Ukraine wants to settle. If I weren't president, nobody would be settling. They're losing 5,000 people a day. Think of it. Here we talk about football. They're losing 5,000 people on average a week. Mostly Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers, 5,000 a week, not including people that are, killed as missiles go into areas that they shouldn't be. It's a very terrible thing. And I think we've come a long way, and it could be something will happen, but hopefully it will. As you know, President Putin just announced a 3-day ceasefire, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot if you knew where we started from, because they were not. We had a president that for 3 years didn't speak to Putin, and it all shouldn't have happened. This is a war that should have never happened.
President Trump's remarks right there hints at a growing belief in Washington that a resolution to the nearly 3-year conflict might be within reach, although official channels have not confirmed any concrete peace talks. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine, now in its 3rd year, remains Europe's largest ground conflict since World War II. Russia's invasion in February 2022 ignited a geopolitical crisis that has killed or injured hundreds of thousands. Trump, seeking a return to the White House, has repeatedly called the war a bloodbath and framed it as a proxy war between the United States and Russia, one that he claims he can bring to an end quickly. However, President Trump pointed to a symbolic gesture by Putin, a 3-day ceasefire to mark the anniversary of the Allied victory in World War II. It doesn't sound like much, Trump acknowledged, but it's a lot if you knew where we started from. This is a war that should have never happened, he stated right there in the video you just saw. Now, his comments come amid concerns that ceasefire overtures may be more about optics than a shift in long-term strategy. Trump also challenged the accuracy of reported casualty numbers, asserting that the real figures are significantly higher than what's publicly acknowledged. Neither Russia nor Ukraine regularly publishes updated statistics on troop or civilian losses, leaving independent observers to rely on fragmented intelligence and estimates. Meanwhile, we take a look at the Kremlin. The Kremlin responded to reports that Trump might meet Putin in Saudi Arabia, saying that no Middle East trip is currently on the Russian president's schedule. Trump has said he intends to visit Saudi Arabia as early as May, potentially setting the stage for high-stakes diplomacy. Now, could Trump's diplomatic approach, criticized as unconventional, actually open new channels for peace or risk legitimizing Putin's war narrative? Time and over again, President Trump has proved to the world that he has come for peace. He is the peaceman. He is the one who would bring an end to this war. And as the days goes by, we are all watching. The world is watching, and everybody is looking forward to President Trump and to see that this war comes to an end. But then Trump was also asked whether he would investigate the 2022 Nord Stream pipeline explosions in a report, an act of sabotage that disrupted the multi-billion-dollar project transporting Russian gas to Germany. Now, the blast under the Baltic Sea caused a sharp pressure drop and raised immediate suspicions, while some Western reports, including from the New York Times and the Washington Post, have pointed to possible Ukrainian involvement, which Kyiv denies. Russia has accused the United States and its allies also, without providing evidence. Trump has also hinted that Russia blew up without elaborating. His remarks add fuel to ongoing speculation and illustrate the murky politics surrounding the attack. Well, bringing you over to the conclusion of this report. Been having quite a lot of reports, but then today bringing you over to the conclusion of this report with multiple parties denying responsibility and intelligence remaining classified. Will the truth about Nord Stream ever be fully revealed, or is it already buried beneath geopolitical agendas? And then while the world keeps watching, when will this war truly come to an end? Until next time, this is where I'll be drawing the curtain on today's Flash News. Remember, we'll be bringing you recent happenings from the home front on Undaunted at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Until then, do have a pleasant day and stay safe.